Hello there, ladies and gents, I'm Frankie, and well, you might wonder what happened to Zahak today, and I'll explain all of it later in the video. However, the main focus of this video is the upcoming, quite massive vehicle changes in Battlefield 2042. In the final episode of Inside Battlefield, focusing on the updates coming in Season 5, DICE spent 36 minutes explaining the changes and why they've done them. We're going to have a look at the highlights and talk about what effect we should expect once the changes are out in the wild. Before we start though, do feel free to hit that thumbs up button if you enjoy this clip or find it useful. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to do so and you won't miss any content like this in the future. Feel free to skip to whatever part you find interesting, or hang around for the entire clip for the full picture. Let's start at the very beginning. Why are DICE even changing the vehicles? Why not just leave it all be and get on with something else? DICE explains in their pod that they have received a lot of feedback from players, mainly focusing on the prevalence of explosive weapons on vehicles in Battlefield 2042.
That was actually beautiful.
Basically what they are saying is that infantry don't like vehicles running around wiping the floor with various weapons with a huge splash radius. Additionally, DICE has been looking at the numbers to see how different vehicles are being used, and they see that, for instance, transport vehicles are picked and played as a sort of a mini-tank. Also, they see that players don't pick the vehicles they need to counter the enemies, because players prefer to mow down infantry or to simply have a good-looking vehicle. Who would have thought? So the changes are generally meant to focus different vehicles to their purpose, and to make it clear to the players so they make better choices and play them more as intended. While I think the reasoning to play the game more as intended is rather debatable, as long as it works and gives a good experience, I think the collected feedback from players still weighs heavily. What we need to understand is, of course, also that the collected feedback from players naturally contains a mix of all skill sets and opinions. I think the divergence of opinions in the Battlefield community superseded the weapons salad by quite some margin. As for instance, transport vehicles are meant to swiftly transport soldiers from position A to position B. It's quite natural to make them focus on that part. Today they have heavy armament, essentially turning them into formidable mobile battle station. With all that in mind, the general change is that all vehicles will have reworked loadouts, and transport vehicles in particular won't carry explosive weapons anymore. That is truly a huge change. As for instance, the LAT no longer will work as sort of a mini-tank. Well, I think many infantry players really enjoy this change, not least since Irish boxes won't protect against vehicle weaponry as before. This also raises some concern. For instance, the 30-man, 50-man, the lot has been decent enough weapons to either scare off or take down helicopters. Take it easy, breathe. DICE has already thought about this. There will be plenty of new loadout options for all vehicles, and again using the LAT as an example, we'll have anti-airflake guns as an option. It remains to be seen how this influences the vehicle versus infantry play though, as all modern wars have proved that most weaponry intended to be used against aircrafts are quite useful against squishy humans as well. There are more additions in the ground forces battle against helicopters and fighters. The Wildcat, the mobile anti-air gun, will for instance have dual 35mm guns and many other new options. I must say, I don't envy the guys in the sky if there is a Wildcat coming. Furthermore, for the first time in a Battlefield 2042 original map, there will be stationary anti-air guns placed on the map. There are some on the portal maps, and they can be quite useful against the air cavalry, so make sure to keep an eye out for these. If you watched my previous video about the best tank shells, you know that I think the staff shell is absolute garbage. While it's cool with a thing that can aim for you, the damage output is just appalling. This is yet another thing that DICE wasn't happy about. So in Season 5, the new staff shell will look onto painted targets, dealing extra damage. How much is this extra damage? Well, who knows this, but it will require you and your friends to work together. I think that things that require several players to work together can and should deal more damage and award more points to everyone involved. But exactly how effective this will be is yet to be seen. Another change that some have screamed about is the cyber warfare protection system. Pretty much all vehicles except the LATV will now have the option to use this system, rendering Rayo useless. Or does it? As far as I know, and I have also asked around a bit, the cyber warfare protection system works as an alternative to the repair kit or the active protection system today. I haven't paid too much attention to it, to be honest, because I value both the ability to repair and the ability to protect myself against incoming explosives higher than the ability to stop Raya from hacking my vehicle. Especially when playing a heavy armored vehicle, it can usually sustain some damage, thus outlast the hack if there is enough space to hide. Also, I don't find hacking rayos that common. Before we shift our focus towards the jets, I just want to mention a rather important detail change for the Bolte. Since the start of Battlefield 2042, the ultimate counter towards Bolt machines has been to kill the driver and the gunner. This used to be possible with pretty much any rifle and was quite a lot quicker than actually taking out the entire vehicle. As the Bolt was intended to push the team forward by harassing the enemy vehicles and objective, quickly repositioning and evading the wrath of the enemy through impressive speed and decent armor, DICE has decided to make the glass bulletproof. As war usually forces heavy development in many areas, this is somewhat realistic actually. But what about the actual gameplay? In a way, this will benefit all, as the number of turned around stationary bolts should decrease. Although there weren't many from the start, was it? I believe in a bolt renaissance, but I don't think they will ever be as dominant as they were in the beginning of Battlefield 2042. The improvement of jets is divided into two parts. The most common feedback of the jets in Battlefield 2042 is that they feel floaty. As you might understand, floaty isn't the description any developer wants to hear. What does that even mean? Yet I would probably also describe them as floaty. It's actually a rather good description. DICE figures that it's all mostly down to having the camera move when flying in third person. So there are some changes in camera distance and movement coming in there. Although DICE might partially be right. For me, the big oddity when it comes to the jets are the general odd movement when looking at them from the ground or when chasing in a dogfight. Changes to the camera of the driver won't fix that, will it? For me, I think this is the first clear miss of the mark when speaking about these changes. Most other changes I feel can fall out as good or bad, depending on the players and what stuff they come up with. The other part of jets is that DICE has heard the complaints from pilots regarding the lack of versatile weaponry. Quite often a fighter is equipped to dogfight or to take out heavy vehicles, and if there are none, then there is little to do for the poor thing. Once again, a genius solution is in place, which ties back a little to the increase of anti-air capabilities. The jets will get rocket pods, so they successfully can harvest infantry. Now the question we all have been waiting for, why the voice? Why is Frankie talking instead of Zaha? So this morning when Zahak woke up, there was no voice. It had slipped away during the night to hide and not return for several hours. As a result of all this, Zahak decided to test the use of an AI voice, which turned out to be me, Frankie. Will I continue to talk a bit in the future? Well, for sure after Skynet, but until then I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Cheers!